Hi, everybody. I want to talk about the research paper with you. The first thing that I'd like to note is that all research papers submitted will be then submitted by me to TurnItIn.com. TurnItIn scrubs the web for anything it considers copied and pasted from any other article. It can tell me, for example, if you have 5 sentences that you found from a research paper in Australia on a cold and icy Monday in 1976. It is not going to tell me what the author was reading or eating at the time, but it is almost that precise. Each semester, or sometimes every other semester, a student falters on this. It's super important. The university had you sign an academic integrity pledge and take a quiz on plagiarism to make sure that this does not happen. It still happens. Generally, it happens when people run out of time. So let's talk for a few minutes about what is too much and what is okay. If you have a paragraph that does a great job of describing something, then it's fine if within that paragraph that there's a sentence that was used somewhere else. It's not fine to have it be the entire paragraph, much less a series of paragraphs, much less a page. And so what happens is there are only so many ways to say how to do something. But what I like to do is to take some materials and to copy and paste from different resources onto a page, to print that up, to read that a couple of times, and then to go say it in my own words without looking at what it is that I've read. So it's kind of a conglomeration of 2 or 3 articles in my own words. Then I edit that. Then I'll go back to the source, and if there's one quote in there, if there's one sentence, then I will copy and paste that sentence, and I will make sure that I cite it. There's no problem with referring to other people's work. There's a huge problem with using other people's work. And keep in mind, in graduate school, a passing grade is an A and a B. And if 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% of your work is from even a great montage of other resources, it's not your work, and you will be scored accordingly. The academic integrity pledge, the high quality of the university, these things are really going to help your career. How you can help your career is to make sure that you have enough time to do this assignment, because it's not a difficult amount of work, it's a time-consuming amount of work. I'm looking to see that maybe for every 2 or 3 paragraphs, there's 2 sentences that are used elsewhere. Make sure if you're creating a block quote where someone says something so fantastic, the whole thing should be represented, double check that you are setting up the block quote correctly with APA. Okay, speaking of APA, on the screen is from your owl.english.purdue.exe an example of what a page looks like. I'm going to show that to you, and then in a second video, I'm going to walk through it with a paper that was submitted to me last semester so that we can see how it looks in the context of our class. First, keep in mind you have a running head. So this running head looks different on the first page than it does on subsequent pages. It only notes running head on the first page. Also, keep in mind how it is that a title page looks. Now, they have a page number here, but APA says no page number on the title page. So it gets a little bit tricky on how to start numbering on the second page, but that's what you want to do with Word. Here we see that the title should summarize the paper's main idea and identify variables under discussion and the relationship between them. Normally how this works is you would set up a title, then a colon, and then a subtitle. I'm not going to be too particular on how it is that you set your titles up, but I am particular about the title page. Should have your name, should have the university's name. Now, sometimes students put in this author note. You don't need to do that. That is when your article is going to go to print if you are going to have it published. But for our purposes, you don't need to worry about that. One thing I do notice a lot is that the header and the page number are in a different font than the article is. So make sure you're using the same font. This is the abstract. Abstracts are typically 250 words, and I write them at the end after I'm done because I'm trying to say in 250 words really what's going on with the paper, and you don't know that at the beginning. So I suggest that you leave room for the abstract, and also with the keywords, you'll know basically by the end of the paper what are the key ideas that you wanted to communicate. So my recommendation is that you do an abstract and your keywords at the end after you've completed your paper. In this case, this paper explores. That's kind of the format for an abstract, because what you're doing is you're saying, if I'm reading 20 different papers because I'm doing a research project, I want to look at the abstract to know what I'm going to find inside. So make sure that your abstract reflects what the reader can expect to see if they take the time to read your paper. The next thing that's important is the paper itself does not start out with the word introduction, and that is APA. An introduction is assumed. You here put the title of the paper, and then you start the paper. The next thing is that headings are important because they organize your paper. When you work in graduate school and post-grad, you'll be reading a lot of papers, and you need for it to be organized. It's kind of like when you download an app and all of a sudden it looks completely different, or you go into a website and you can't find anything. You're saying there should be a nav bar at the top of the page, I should have a home button, etc. People are looking for consistency so that they can focus on content. So I will be very picky about the consistency of your APA style, and one of the main areas that I see inconsistency is in the way that headings are set up. The first one is center bold. There are different levels of headings, and if you go to the page of your APA where headings are noted, it only takes about 30 seconds to see what that is. Another thing I want to point out is in Word, and I've mentioned this before, you need to set your paragraphs to double spacing with 0 space before and 0 space after a paragraph. I often see extra space when a heading goes in, or extra space when paragraphs are set up that have been copied and pasted in, and I also see extra space when people are trying to make a paper look longer than it is. So the length of your paper is the paper's narrative. It's not the title page, it's not the abstract, and it's not the references. It is the actual narrative itself, where it is that you are telling us what's happening. The next critical thing to understand is what it is that I'm looking for when I'm scoring. I'm looking for you to, at the beginning of the paper, set the context and offer up your research question. Then I'm looking for you to analyze what it is that you saw in the data, analyze how that data from your case study and the ideas from your case study conflict or support or extend or expand or refute in the context of your research question and the other theory that you read. After your analysis, I'm looking for your recommendations. My expectation is that your analysis is 3 pages long and your recommendations are 2 to 3 pages long. Your recommendations are your thoughts based on what you've learned, what you read, and what you would recommend in the context of your research question, the theory that you've offered, and your case study. Lastly, I'm looking for a summary. A summary should be at least a page. A summary doesn't tell us what it is that we already read. It kind of encapsulates and brings everything together. So it may refer to what you already offered in your paper, but you're not going to take 3 or 4 paragraphs and copy and paste them in the summary. You're trying to close the idea for your reader. Now, when you're in industry or in the governmental sector and you are presenting a paper after you've completed this class, oftentimes what happens is people thumb right to the back of the paper. They want to see your analysis briefly, but mainly they want to see your recommendations and your summary. If you spend most of your paper just presenting the context, it's not that useful to the reader, because usually what happens is you're presenting a paper at work. And let's say that you have a pizza parlor. If you talk about your pizza parlor, where your pizza parlor is located, everybody in the pizza parlor is falling asleep when they're reading your paper because they already know that. They want to see the analysis, which is where you took a look at what nights are most popular, how much money you make on video games, why it is that you might want to consider adding a bocce ball court or a disco ball into the center of the pizza parlor. Then they see your recommendations. That's the key of your paper. Your recommendations are saying, based on what we know from other pizza parlors, based on what our data are here, based on what the research question is and what it is that we're trying to dig, these are my recommendations for how we can expand, scale, extend, make our business more profitable, etc. And then the summary brings all of these ideas together to say, we looked at this research question. The crux of our analysis is this. Two of our recommendations were this. Perhaps next steps are this and that, and how it is that you want to wrap everything up for the reader. People want to read not what they already know, and please, people don't want to read what everybody already knows. So if you're saying pizza is popular in America, please take it out of your paper. If you're saying pizza always has cheese and sauce and it has dough, well, like everybody already knows that. So make sure that you're not stating the obvious in the first section of the paper. Communicate what it is that everyone wants to know so that they can learn something, so that there's a call to action, so that they can do something. Let's talk headers one more time. The heading, this is a header, this is a heading. The first level, level 1, center bold. The second level in the same area, bold left. The third sub area within the same main idea is indented and is still bold. Here, sub idea, sub idea. When I see this again, conclusions and future study, I'm back at level 1 heading. Okay, I hope this helps. The APA guide will take you a maximum of an hour to take a look at for these primary areas. If I don't see the APA following this format, there's going to be a points deduction because this is about time and this is about really taking care to communicate to your readers, to share your ideas. We want to set up a context, a format, and a way to tell the story so that everyone is engaged in what you're saying and not distracted by how you're presenting it. Thanks.